So, guys, the Cowboys just dominated the Arizona Cardinals 34-13, and after these first two preseason games, this really doesn't feel like the same old Cowboys team. Dallas is 2-0. They've looked physical and surprisingly deep on both sides of the ball, and right now they're the only undefeated team in the NFC East this preseason. But all of this success has created a very interesting problem for Jerry Jones and this coaching staff. With final cuts getting closer, some bubble players are suddenly becoming extremely difficult to cut, while other competitions are getting even more complicated. So, let me explain why the Cowboys suddenly have a very interesting depth chart problem and how Arizona may have made those final decisions much harder. What's up, Cowboys Nation? Welcome to the NFL Playbook, Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So, let's start with Joe Milton because this was the story of the whole night. Milton just took control of the quarterback 2 battle, and I mean that. 9 of 13 passing, 79 yards, 2 touchdown throws, and a rushing score on top of it. Now look, I know it's preseason, and I know the competition wasn't exactly the Cardinals' starting defense, but what stood out to me wasn't just the arm. We already knew Milton had a cannon. What impressed me was the touch. That throw to Camden Brown where he had to climb the pocket, slide to the side, and just float it in there where nobody but Camden Brown could get it, that's not something he was doing last year. That's growth. His decision-making looked sharper, his footwork looked cleaner, and he stayed patient in the pocket instead of taking off and running every time something broke down. Meanwhile, Sam Howell is fading fast in this race. He didn't get much help, sure, playing behind the third and fourth string offensive line with a thinner group of skill players around him, but at this point, it really does feel like a wrap. Milton has separated himself, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if other teams around the league start calling Dallas about him before too long. For now, though, that's a conversation for another day. Right now, this is simply Joe Milton's job to keep, and he's playing like a guy who knows it. Now, let's shift over to the backfield, because Dallas suddenly has a different kind of problem at running back. It's not really a controversy anymore, it's more like a good problem to have. Malik Davis continues proving that he can be trusted. 5 carries, 29 yards, solid pass protection, and a nice touchdown catch out of the backfield. He's the kind of back you know exactly what you're getting from. But the guy everyone wanted to see was Jaydon, and he finally showed us something. 15 carries, 75 yards, and you could see him breaking tackles and finding lanes that weren't always there. He was running with more patience too, staying inside instead of trying to bounce every single run outside for the highlight reel. Here's the thing about these two. I don't think Malik Davis and Jaydon are really fighting for the same job. Malik Davis is your steady, dependable option behind Javonte Williams, while Jaydon looks like he's being groomed into more of an all-purpose weapon, somebody who can line up in the backfield, catch passes, and even help out on returns. Both of these guys could realistically make this roster, and both of them could be part of how Dallas spells Javonte Williams more often this season after running him into the ground a year ago. There's also a separate issue further down this depth chart, though. Israel Abanikanda got 8 carries for 39 yards, but most of that came late in the game, and Phil Maffa didn't even get his first offensive snap until the fourth quarter. The order these backs are getting their touches in tells you exactly where the coaching staff has them stacked. Okay, now moving on to the wide receiver room, because this might be the toughest decision on the entire roster right now. Camden Brown just made this whole thing so much harder on the coaching staff. Another explosive night, 77 yards on just 2 catches, including a 70-yard catch and run that had defenders falling off him, and honestly, I don't think Dallas can risk putting this guy on waivers anymore. If they try to sneak him through, some team out there scoops him up in a heartbeat. At the same time, Jonathan Mingo picked the perfect moment to step up too, hauling in a deep touchdown that showed exactly why the coaching staff has stuck with him. So now you've got 2 guys who both made real cases for themselves in the same game, and that creates a numbers problem. Dallas typically wants to keep 5 receivers, but with the way Camden Brown and Jonathan Mingo have both played, carrying 6 suddenly feels like a real possibility. And if that happens, it puts even more pressure on a guy like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's already fighting an uphill battle to stick around. On top of that, Michael Trigg picked up a toe injury and didn't play, which adds another layer to how Dallas has to sort this room out. Either way, between the backs and the receivers, Dallas is dealing with more good problems than bad ones right now, and that's a nice place to be this close to final cuts. Okay, now let's get to the defense, because this is where things get really exciting for me as a fan, and probably for Christian Parker too. Jaishawn Barham is becoming impossible to keep off the field. This rookie linebacker showed serious physicality and aggressive run defense against Arizona, slicing through the line and blowing up plays in the backfield. He was even given green dot responsibilities, which means he's wearing the radio helmet and making the defensive calls. For a rookie to be trusted with that much this early, that tells you everything about how much the coaching staff already believes in him. And honestly, I don't think we've even seen the full picture yet. Christian Parker still hasn't shown us everything this defense can do with Jaishawn Barham on the field, especially once they start mixing in some of those blitz packages. The real question now becomes how Dallas finds him regular season snaps, because between him and D. Winters, somebody is going to have to share that workload. Somebody is going to have to move out of the way for Jaishawn Barham, because based on what we've seen through 2 preseason games, this rookie is not a guy you keep on the bench. Right alongside him, Shavon Revel Jr. is creating another one of these good problems on defense. He picked off a pass against Arizona and continued building on what's already been a strong camp and preseason. You can see the size, the physicality, and the confidence starting to show up on tape now that he's fully healthy after that knee injury. If he keeps this up, he might end up forcing his way into a real role in that secondary rotation, whether that's outside or even some snaps in the slot. Right now, Kobe Durant and Deron Bland look like the locks on the outside, but the way Shavon Revel Jr. has played, it's getting harder and harder to keep him off the field on early downs, not just as a rotational piece. And it's not just those two. Christian Parker's defense as a whole is starting to look like a completely different unit. This isn't just about Jaishawn Barham and Shavon Revel Jr. The backups across the board already look comfortable running this system. The tackling has been better, the communication has been better, and the whole group just looks more disciplined out there. Dallas only had 4 penalties for 20 yards in this entire game, which is honestly incredible for a preseason contest. After finishing near the bottom of the league defensively last season, seeing this kind of structure and discipline this early really does matter. Dallas brought in real talent up front too. Guys like Rashawn Gary, Von Miller, PJ Day, Locke, and Jalen Thompson. And even though none of them are exactly household names, they're all experienced players who can help stabilize a unit that struggled so badly a year ago. Add that veteran presence to what these young guys are already showing, and it's easy to see why there's genuine optimism building around this defense. Of course, with all this good news, there's another side to it. Several Cowboys just moved a lot closer to the roster bubble after this game. Sam Williams and Maris Lafau were both still out there late into the 4th quarter, and when you're playing that deep into a preseason game, that usually isn't a great sign for your roster chances. Phil Maffa scored a touchdown, and it was a great run. But he didn't even get his first offensive snap until the 4th quarter, behind Malik Davis, Jaydon Blue, and even Israel Abanikanda. The order they're playing guys in is telling you everything about where they stand. And we already talked about Sam Howell losing ground in that quarterback race. With 1 preseason game left, these bubble guys are running out of chances to change the coaching staff's mind. Add in names like Kalen Carson and Zion Childress, who haven't done much to separate themselves through 2 games, and you can see this roster is about to get a whole lot leaner in a hurry. The next preseason game is going to be a true dress rehearsal for a lot of these guys, and honestly, for some of them, it might be their last real shot to prove they belong. Now, there is still one problem Dallas hasn't fully solved, and that's the depth behind the starting offensive line. Drew Shelton continues to struggle, and if you're noticing a rookie tackle getting beat on tape, that's usually not a good sign. Nate Thomas actually held up fine at right tackle in this one, which is a small positive, but TJ Bass is clearly your 6th lineman, and after him, it's still murky. Terence Steele is already a question mark at right tackle because of his contract situation and his conditioning, so if either starting tackle goes down, Dallas doesn't have a clean answer behind them right now. This is probably the one real hole left on this roster heading into the final week of preseason. Every other position group has answers, even if they're still figuring out the exact order. But offensive tackle depth is the one spot where, if something goes wrong with Terence Steele or Tyler Guyton, Dallas doesn't have a clear-cut plan sitting behind them right now. That's something this coaching staff still needs to figure out before the games start counting for real. So, here's the bigger picture, guys. Dallas just dominated its first 2 preseason games. They're 2-0 for the first time since 2007, and young players all over this roster are making legitimate pushes to make the 53. This new defensive system under Christian Parker is already showing real signs of life, even with backups on the field. Final cuts are becoming difficult, but for once, it's difficult for a good reason. So I want to know from you, out of everybody we talked about tonight, which player has done the most to force his way onto that final roster? Drop it down in the comments, let's talk about it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace, Cowboys Nation.